Now let's delete this a little bit. So now we need to do something if it's valid, right? Let me just prepare here for when it's not valid as well. When we left the range, right? I'm just gonna paste it in here. Right. So now what we're gonna do here is we want to make sure that our player, when you press any like a interaction or I, or doesn't matter, any button in the keyboard will trigger action, right? So let's set up the action first, and then we can combine when you press the action is in the range, and then we delete this object for now, right? So what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna go to File. I'm gonna go to Editor Preferences, Project Settings. Sorry, Project Settings. You open another tab. Let's bring to this tab here, right? So in here, I wanna go here to Input. Yeah. If you go lost, all I did is just went to Edit, Project Settings. Yeah. Input. Right. So inputs is where you're actually gonna create, you know, new kinds of inputs to your character and things that you can actually interact on the game. For example, if you press shift, you run, you probably will do this in here, right? So what I'm gonna do here is I am gonna create an action mapping. I'm gonna press this button. I am gonna call this interact, or yeah, interact. And I am gonna use the keyboard key E, right? That's the one I'm gonna use. Right. So how do we know, how do we test this? How can I make sure I can use this? It's really simple, right? This you can use on the character, you could use on the controller, but to make it simple for now, we're gonna be using on the character. So it's basically is when you jump, it's a similar thing when you jump, but we're gonna be using here on the character, right? So go ahead and open up your RPG demo character, right click in here and search for interact. That's an action. And what we're gonna do here is when you press that button, which is E, we're gonna just print a string. It's gonna say something like pressing E. Just test it for now, so you guys can actually see what's going on. So if I press E, it's pressing that, but the item is not yet doing anything. So now we need to make sure that this interact with our component and then do so we can actually combine it, right? Now, so we got a simple base. So I'm just gonna select those nodes, press C, and say inventory interaction, so we know what we're doing. Yeah. Now, what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna open up the inventory, and I am gonna edit the inventory class, and in here, yeah, in the components, I'm gonna create a new variable, and this variable is gonna be items, or let's make sure the variable, the way you should create a variable, it needs to make sense. Like you need to look at the variable and say, oh, I know what that variable does. So let's say something word items to interact. Yeah, and this variable type will be this BP based items. So you're just gonna call BP based items, and this is gonna be an object reference. There's one more thing that we need to do. Make sure it's public. I'm not sure if you're gonna yet. Probably not. Probably yes, but let's see it. So we click on this variable. We need to make sure that this guy here is an array. Yeah. The reason why it needs to be an array is because we want to, as the player go inside and get out, he adds to that variable and removes. So we know that we can add this and remove that. So the player cannot, for example, if the player get out from this range, he can't interact with that anymore. This is, once again, it's just one of many ways to create this. There's many ways you can actually do this. I just think that this is a more nicer way to do it, and cleaner, and actually is easy to follow, right? So doing that, yeah, just create a variable, nothing too complicated. Now we're gonna create something called interface, right? So interface is basically a contract between a class and a method that can be reused and be reapplied in different scenarios. So instead of doing something called casting, so you create a new instance and then you add that instance to something else, you can just reference that object and send it to other place. This will save you time, performance. It can be a little bit of a pain to set up in the beginning, but once you get your head around, you should be fine, right? So to do that, I'm just gonna go here. Where's the location of my inventory? I'm gonna right click here. I'm gonna go to blueprint class, yeah, and I am gonna create here. I think that's the wrong one. Sorry, is blueprints? Yeah, just go to blueprints and blueprint interface. Yeah. The way you call blueprint interface is just BPI, and we're gonna call this blueprint inventory interaction. Yeah, nice. And now we need to add this interface to our BP inventory so we can use the methods and interactions and things, right? So to do that, I am gonna go here where it says class settings. I'm gonna go where it's saying here implemented interface. You see there's no interface implemented. I'm gonna press add and I'm gonna search for BPI inventory interaction. Let's click on that and there you go. So you're almost all set to go. So let's open up the blueprint interface. Blueprint interfaces, they are very different from blueprints and other components. They basically, you cannot do any logic in here, but you can pass variables and methods, so you can actually use that logic in something else. Yeah, the concept is a little bit hard to follow, but once you get your hand around, it starts to make sense why we use blueprint. So I really recommend you guys to use loads and loads of interfaces, because it will make your game less messy, it will make your game faster and easy to follow, of course, as long as you comment and add the right names to the class. Right, so I'm gonna create two functions, yeah? First one here, I am gonna call this function. I always start any functions in interface with I, just to make sure I know the interface. I dash object or inventory object in start interaction, yeah, and the other one is going to be just stop interaction, right? And we need one parameter, only one parameter. We need to pass the object reference, and the object reference is the BP base item. So we're going to call the reference just item, and this is going to be BP base item and the object reference. Same thing from when the player leave range. So item there, and there we go. So compile and save. Yeah. Now on the inventory here, we're gonna use those methods and do something with it, right? So the way interface work, if you see here under the interfaces, you can see the method in there. So you can right click and press implement event, or you can right click in here and just put the name of the class and add event. Because we just have two interfaces, I'm just gonna right click here and press implement event, and the same here for the stop interaction. Start and stop, right? Okay, so right now, what I'm gonna do here on the start, I'm gonna create a print, and I am gonna just display the item name. That's all I want to do. Compile and save. Right now, if you press here and go, nothing gonna happen, because we still need to say that what's gonna happen when the player touch this cube, right? We need to say, oh, player is touching this cube somehow, so we need to send the reference of the cube to display in